Alles Klotz Productions.
Back when the first Sonic game was released on the Mega Drive/Genesis in 1991, Sega wanted to produce a version for the Game Gear and Master System. Simply porting the 16-bit game to 8-bit hardware wouldn't have been possible, so they had to rebuild the game from scratch. Composer Yuzo Koshiro, who I have mentioned in my Streets of Rage 1 and 2 reviews, was up to the task. He founded the studio Ancient specifically for this project. I myself discovered the Game Gear version in the mid-2000s on the Sonic Mega Collection Plus for the PlayStation 2. I wasn't really interested at first, but when I reviewed the game in 2010, I discovered that it's a pretty solid game. For that video I got the Master System version on the Wii Virtual Console, and I liked that one even more. Meanwhile, 11 years have passed, and this year marks the 30th anniversary of this game. Recently, I got an original Master System copy for my collection. That's why I want to revisit this game and take another deep look at it. Does it still hold up today? Let's see what 8-bit Sonic has in store for us.
GFrom, the gamer, the legend, he's come to show you the way in this world of games. GFrom reviews.
The story is exactly the same as in the 16-bit version, so there's no need to go over that again. Gameplay is very similar, but not identical. Just like before, we have to play through 6 zones with 3 acts each while collecting rings to stay alive. Unlike on the Mega Drive, the rings don't scatter when you get hit. This means that you lose all of your rings and can't get any of them back. That fact alone makes this game a lot harder. The video monitors, also known as item boxes, are back as well, and they serve the same purpose here. 10 rings, a shield, an extra life, invincibility and speed. Weirdly enough, I've only discovered the power sneakers once in the entire game. I fail to see the point. New are the arrows, which act as checkpoints in this game. These are terrible and I hate them. That might sound harsh to you, but let me explain. Every time you die, the arrows reappear. And I found out the hard way that if you don't jump on them every single time, you lose the checkpoint and have to start from the beginning of the level. Again, what's the point? The only good reason to restart a level is if you somehow manage to miss a Chaos Emerald. This also might sound weird to you. The Chaos Emeralds are in the bonus stages, right? Not in this game. The 6 Chaos Emeralds are hidden within the levels. While some are easy to spot, others are more difficult to find. So unlike many other platformers from that era, exploration is encouraged and rewarded. At the end of the first 2 acts, you'll pass a bonus panel. Based on the image it shows, you can get a reward, like 10 rings for example. There are still bonus stages, which you can get by finishing one of the first 2 acts of a zone with 50 rings. There's no giant ring to jump through, sadly. Here you can get rings, extra lives and even continues. I strongly advise to go for 50 rings in every level, because it can never hurt to have some life insurance. But, and this is important, if you get 100 rings, which rewards you with an extra life, the ring count resets to 0. Just keep that in mind when you're near the end of the level. Gameplay is very similar to its 16-bit counterpart. Sonic jumps with both buttons and rolls when you push down. Of course, the spin dash wasn't invented yet, so that's all you've got. Let's check out the levels. It is evident from the title screen that this game won't be able to compete with the Mega Drive game in the graphics department. Just the Sonic logo pasted over a black background. Every level starts with a map, which I think is a nice touch. We start on familiar territory. Green Hill Zone takes inspiration from the original, but doesn't look nearly as good. Still, for an 8-bit game, it's perfectly fine if you ask me. Act 1 is a pretty straightforward stage, which introduces the most common gameplay elements. There is this ramp, which you can use to beat this level in a matter of seconds if you do it right. Most of the time, I mess it up. Why are the badniks so small? I guess half the bits, half the body size. By the way, there are no loop-de-loops in this game. Act 2 is where the game sets itself apart from its big brother, as it takes place in an underground cave and you have to find your way out. It is here in the depth of the cave that we find our first Chaos Emerald. Exciting! I managed to get to a bonus stage, so we might as well talk about them now. Like I said, you can get some goodies here, but that's not always as easy as it sounds. You jump around on springs and shit, and while the first couple of stages are quite easy to navigate, it can become a pain in the buttocks later on as you bounce around all over the place with next to no control over your body. Sega. What does it mean? The third act of every level is very short. In fact, it's pretty much just a boss fight. Usually you can find a hidden 1-up on your way to Robotnik, but there are no rings to be found. This of course means that you have to beat the Doctor without getting hit once. Unless you carry over a shield from the previous act. The first boss is so easy, there's no way you'll need rings anyway. On the Game Gear it's even more pathetic, because you can hit him all the time. Laughable. All in all, Green Hill Zone is enjoyable and a good way to kickstart the adventure.
Next up is Marble Zone. Wait, what? Bridge Zone? Alright!
This one is way more fun than Marble Zone. Act 1 is a linear stage with a bunch of collapsing bridges and bottomless pits. The Chaos Emerald might seem tricky to get, but with courage it shouldn't be a problem. Visually, it bears a strong resemblance to Green Hill Zone, but the music is different, so it doesn't feel exactly the same. Pretty surreal.
Act 2 might be the most unusual stage in the game. Because ladies, gentlemen and hedgehogs, we have an auto-scrolling level in a Sonic game.
Remember, this is only the second Sonic game ever made, so there was no clear formula to speak of. In my opinion, they had all the rights to experiment with different ideas. In this case, it unfortunately doesn't work for me because it is
So slow.
There is next to no challenge whatsoever. It just crawls along and it's extremely boring. But I applaud the developers for trying to switch things up. At the beginning of Act 3, go to the left and grab a life. Sneaky bastards. The second boss is a little bitch because he shoots projectiles that can be hard to avoid at first. But once you figure out what to do, he is beaten in no time. Overall, the stage is nothing special and the second act drags it down. But it's not terrible or anything. It's just average. Jungle Zone introduces a new background. Wow, so much green! Act 1 lets you traverse over vines and through waterfalls. It also has a ton of bottomless pits, and here they can become a problem.
I can't tell you how many lives I've lost on this level over the years. Is it a hard stage? Not technically, but it's very easy to die. And I mean very easy.
You have to take your time. Rushing it won't get you far at all. Sometimes it's hard to see where you can jump. On a big TV, the waterfall is kind of painful to look at. Try staring at this screen for 2 minutes.
You won't need any booze after that, believe me.
Act 2 is a vertical stage, another unusual level in Sonic's history. But why on earth do you die when you fall off the screen? It doesn't matter if a platform is just one step under you. If it's not on the screen, it's basically lava and instant death. Thankfully, they fixed this in the Game Gear port, which makes it much more enjoyable. It's not very difficult though, so dying shouldn't happen too often if you once again take your time. The third boss is my least favorite in the game. Again, it's not difficult if you know what to do, but there have been many times in my life where I got killed by this black ball on most of my attempts. Only jump at Robotnik when he's at the edge of the screen, otherwise you'll risk bouncing onto the ball. Jungle Zone as a whole could be a classic Sonic stage, but I'd say it's too annoying for its own good. I like how you get to the Chaos Emerald in Act 1 though. Not too obvious, but not cryptic either.
Dear viewers, raise your glasses because Ancient brought back a fan favorite for this game.
Labyrinth Zone. Yeah.
Now if you saw my video on the Mega Drive game, you know that I actually enjoy this stage, unlike most people. Can I say the same for this one? Not really.
Believe it or not, it is even slower in 8 bits. Despite a few decent platforming sections, several parts just annoy the hell out of me. Just look at this part. It takes forever to make progress. I don't think it's a hard level, as I died way more often in Jungle Zone. It's just too slow and kills the fun. At least you don't get a heart attack when you run out of air. It just beeps instead of playing that traumatizing sound. You know which one. Act 1 and 2 feel pretty similar. On my most recent playthrough on the Game Gear, the game glitched out in Act 2 and kicked me back to the title screen, making me lose all of my progress. Thanks to the internet, I found out that other people have had this problem too. Check out the trivia section on Sonic Fandom. How dare they not patch a 30-year-old game? Speaking of stuff that annoys me, the Chaos Emerald is hidden within spikes. So if you don't have an invisibility shield, you're pretty much screwed, bro. The boss can be a pain in the ass. Watch out for the projectiles and you'll probably be fine. At least Sonic doesn't need air all of a sudden.
Tell me your secret, Sonic.
Once again, this fight is much easier on the Game Gear. Now one of my most beloved zones from the Mega Drive game returns. 8-bit Scrap Brain Zone feels much different and is not nearly as difficult, however. Act 1 is in fact one of the most straightforward stages in the entire game. All you need to do is avoid some obstacles and that's it. In contrast, Act 2 feels like the longest stage in the game. It is a giant maze with different floors and doors you have to open. This level should have been called Labyrinth Zone if you ask me. It can be confusing at times, especially if you're searching for the Chaos Emerald. For some reason, the Chaos Emerald doesn't always show up in my Master System recordings, but you can hear that I collected it. On the Game Gear you can see it just fine. Oddly enough, Act 3 doesn't have a boss fight. It's just another maze with even more doors. At the end we're chasing Robotnik, but he just takes off into the sky. I guess we'll just follow him. Scrap Brain Zone is the most forgettable part of the game in my opinion, and a bit of a slog. Again, I appreciate that they tried something different, but it doesn't work for me. It's just boring. Sky Base Zone is the final level, and just like on the Mega Drive, all 3 acts look different. Act 1 might be the hardest stage in the game. Cannons are shooting at you from every angle and there's electricity everywhere. And I mean everywhere. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten a game over here. The bottomless pits don't really help either. Plus, why does this act have the same boring music as Scrap Brain Zone?
I expect more of you.
Yuzo.
Act 2 does have original music and it kicks ass, just like the stage. Except for the Chaos Emerald. I would never have found this one without help, and when you take this route, the stage is over very quickly. The level reminds me a bit of Super Mario Bros. 3. You know, cannons on a flying ship? Oh, and there are no rings in this stage. Good luck, soldier. In Act 3 we have the final boss fight with the regular boss music. Kind of anticlimactic if you ask me. The fight itself is tough. Once again you don't have any rings and the hitbox is all over the place sometimes. In contrast, the Game Gear fight, which is completely different, is a piece of cake. I like cake and the taste of sweet victory. Either way, Robotnik takes off after the fight, thinking he can escape. Sonic catches up with him in Green Hill Zone and destroys him for good. You know, till the next game. Having all the Chaos Emeralds gives you a slightly different ending and massive points, but one could ask if it's worth the trouble. During the credits, Sonic sings a banger of a tune, and that's pretty much it. The music is pretty enjoyable for the most part. Sure, you can't compare the quality to the tunes of its big brother, but most melodies are catchy and fun. Jungle Zone might be the best example for this. I have used this tune so many times in all kinds of videos because it just puts you in a good mood. I also like this deeper version of Green Hill Zone. There are some tracks that I don't care about. The bonus stage is forgettable and Scrap Brain Zone kind of gets on my nerves after a while. The biggest disappointment is the boss music. The one on the Mega Drive is such a great track, and this one on the other hand is just kind of there. Nothing special about it.
I find the boss tune to be a bit disappointing, because it just gives you a feeling like, oh yeah, I'm beating Robotnik, oh yeah, I'm beating Robotnik. Unlike the Mega Drive music, which was kick-ass.
But let's pay homage to the best tunes. Here are my top 3 songs from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Number 3. This is the most banging tune in the entire game. It gets you pumped to finally kick some Dr. Butt after this adventurous journey. Number 2. I actually prefer this song to the Mega Drive counterpart. It has a cool vibe to it and fits the level much better in my opinion. It makes the stage a bit more bearable. Number 1. Bridge Zone has a lovely melody that puts a smile on your face. It's one of my most loved 8-bit tunes in existence. If a song can make me get through a boring auto-scrolling level with positive feelings, it must do something very right.
Let's wrap this up, shall we?
I know I complained quite a bit, but Sonic the Hedgehog on the Master System and Game Gear both hold up pretty well for the most part. Some levels don't really work for me, but at least they add variety to the game. Many levels are enjoyable, even if nothing here is groundbreaking or anything. I think it's impressive that they managed to create a solid Sonic game on their first attempt, with mostly great music, responsive controls, and gameplay that is easy to get into.
I have to say though, I believe this to be one of the hardest 2D Sonic games of that era. At least if you haven't played it in years and don't remember everything by heart.
Just like on the Mega Drive, simply running right and hoping for the best won't get you far, and I highly recommend you get as many continues as possible. Trust me, you will need them on your first attempts.
And that music when you die, that really makes me angry. Just stop it! Oh no! Just stop! What's Sonic's deal anyway? He looks like a goddamn hamster.
Both versions have their ups and downs. The Master System has a lower color palette but benefits from a larger screen resolution. Some bosses seem harder because of that. Sonic can jump higher on the Game Gear and the controls feel a bit more slippery. You have to pay more attention to what's ahead of you because of the smaller screen. Some level layouts vary a bit, but essentially the games are pretty much the same. Although I own the much slower PAL version, I prefer the Master System port for the bigger screen alone. And Sonic has a nose. Seems more healthy.
You can't really go wrong with either of these games. Just don't expect them to be as great as the masterpiece on the Mega Drive.
Today you can download the Game Gear version on the 3DS eShop.
So if you're curious about Sonic's history and want to experience his humble 8-bit beginnings, this is a good place to start.
Hey everyone, this is GFrom. Thank you so much for watching my video. Feel free to rate, comment, subscribe and follow me on social media. I'll see you later. Have a nice day.